Graham Miller, MD of the 7C group of companies, and my primary focus is the strategic direction of the business, ensuring that the growth targets the shareholders have set are met, and ensuring that our customer satisfaction is as high as possible.
I'm Eugene Claassen. I'm Technical Director at the 7C group of companies. I make sure our support department does what they need to do. Customers are happy, problems are getting solved. Work on solutions for customers as well. And I also chart the technical direction of the business. He was actually like a materials scientist working for the CSIR. And he got to a point where he sort of said to himself, I don't love what I'm doing, but he's not sure what the next step is. And at that time, there was this interesting new thing called Linux, or Linux for the purists, that had just come out. He started dabbling with it. He had learned, the C language, the programming language C, and basically constructed built a program, an algorithm that the idea of it would be to tell him what to do next. Like he had weights and all kinds of things in there. And bear in mind, this is like mid-90s. So this is well before AI and all these types of things, algorithms we talk about today. But he put all his inputs into this program, and the result that it spat out is you need to start a business, and that business is 7C.
And that's where the C comes from in the 7C, is the programming language C. Yes. So initially we wrote all of the software on the C programming language, and that kind of made its way into the name. So the company was founded in 1998, and it's one of those stories where it was a handful of developers that really working out of the founder's garage, as it were, building very bespoke Linux solutions and some very specific development projects that came about primarily through the founder's contacts in the CSIR at the time. We started then doing work for Sanparks in particular, developing their bookings engine, which they still use today, but we developed that from the ground up to allow them to do online bookings.
We'd be classed as an MSP, which is a managed service provider.
One of the key differentiators, let's say, that we have is that we have a focus on the client, as Eugene was saying. We always try to be seen to them as a trusted advisor. We almost become part of the staff there. We always try to it's always an engagement, it's always a conversation that we're having with the client. How can we do things better? Understanding the business that they operate in, understanding the industry. How can they do things better, be more efficient, be more cost effective, and taking the hassle of IT out of their hands. And there are many companies similar to us, managed service providers, which are almost seen as aggregators in a sense. Or you have your generic guy in his van driving around doing your desktop support, the man in the van. How we try to differentiate ourselves there is it becomes more around the conversation with the client, understanding their needs, having that relationship, being a trusted advisor, and having that trust element is really key for us. And that's why we have clients, 20 years plus clients that have been with us on the journey since day one almost. When the technology changes and where they have to change how their business operates, maybe from an IT perspective, they trust our judgment. Across the 7C entity and the two subsidiaries, I would say there's approximately 800 clients. We also have a large reseller network as well, which is in South Africa, but also spanning into Africa. So that is most of the Southern African region, as well as Kenya and Uganda, and Ghana to a lesser degree. We also do a lot of work for some of the multinationals, but generally they would have a presence in South Africa, and then we would support them here as their outsourced IT support. I joined the business in 2009 as a techie, as a Linux systems administrator. So that was really my focus and what I enjoyed doing. I then got more involved in some of the development of the solutions that we provided at the time, and I loved that as well. Coming from a programming background, actually designing something yourself and creating this solution product from the ground up and being able to roll that into our client base and actually then seeing the value in it was very rewarding. And as my role has changed, I've found, call it reward and satisfaction in other areas in terms of what I do. Having those conversations with the clients on a more strategic level in terms of how we've assisted them with an issue that they've had, or even prospects, and actually being able to sell the solutions to them and getting them on board with how 7C do things is also very rewarding. When we go and have a conversation with a prospect or a new client, what's really important is to understand, well, what are their pain points, but also what does their business look like? How do they function from an IT perspective?
I too came from my time in the trenches. I was a techie driving in my car to customers. The thing that's most rewarding for me is the journey. Eventually you reach a point where you can step back and go, look what I've created. Because what will happen sometimes is we go in at a customer and it's every day is a problem. We're putting out fires all the time. They can't work, they're often down, all sorts of things, and then we work through all these issues, we comb through these problems, and then at some point we'll get a furious phone call from the client because the biggest issue they've had in months is that the printer is printing the wrong way around or something silly like that. And then there's that moment where you sort of reflect and you go from, a couple of months ago this customer was phoning me saying they can't work, they can't transact, things are a problem, their costs are too high, to now you could not get more minor problems, and that to me is really rewarding. I love delivering a great service and good workmanship in our game.